What's going on, folks? It is me, Lau, back again, and boy, oh boy, have you people been patient. Have you people been patient with me in regards to my Unlucky Tug Season 5 retrospective reaction, because I think a lot of people were waiting for it, especially after I reacted to Project Tiger Moth, and so I deeply apologize for not getting to it sooner, because honestly, this was really the video where I'd argue it got the most hype surrounding it. But in any case, hopefully we haven't missed a beat by this very long hiatus from his videos. I think the last season retrospective I reacted to was back in September. So thank you guys so much for waiting. I dearly hope that you will enjoy this one. Well, it is the Unlucky Tug, so what else do you expect? Other than the complete and utter best from what we have to see in this fandom. This one should be an interesting one, to be honest. Season 5. Now, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk about my thoughts on Season 5. It's not my favourite season, but like we've established with the Unlucky Tugs videos, there is a big difference between favourite and best. Honestly, this is the best season of Thomas for me. Like, this is, like, I tell you what, tell this to my younger self, I'd probably punch my older self in the face for saying that, because I only really grew up with 2 episodes of season 5, and they were Cranky Bugs and Rusty and the Boulder. I specifically remember because they were on the Best of Thomas DVD, and basically after watching those 2 episodes, I avoided this season like the plague. Well, to be fair, since I was a kid, I wouldn't really know the difference what was season 5 and what wasn't season 5. But Jesus Christ, I will never forget watching those episodes for the first time and just how much they frightened me. Like, season 5 is a completely different beast, and we've talked about this before on my channel. But that whole idea of kind of emotional impact, how it affects the child, how Thomas goes to a child, like how a child reacts to certain episodes. I think season 5, if you're watching Thomas for the first time, like the classic series specifically, I think season 5 will get the biggest reaction out of you. Well, that being said, you'd probably be laughing your ass off at season 5, or not season 5. You'd probably be laughing your ass off at season 15 for how crap it is. But yeah, you probably just think you're just having some kind of acid trip or a fever dream when watching those seasons, but just anything of the Sharon Miller era. But season 5, I definitely think, has the best balance for me in terms of quality storytelling, visuals, and character development. Like, I definitely think, granted, one thing I will say with character development, since it's its own separate canon, this season is more episodic than the other ones. And so, because it's the first not based off of any of Audrey's stories. And so, it'll be interesting seeing where they go with the running order. So, it's very intriguing. I, like, but honestly, this season, for me, is the perfect balance. Like, undoubtedly. Like, if you look at all the other seasons, they had really good aspects about them, but they also had something that kind of dragged them down. This is the peak of Thomas, I reckon. Like, this is, granted, straight after this, it took a complete nosedive starting with Magic Railroad, but to be fair, season 6 and 7 really weren't that bad, so that's a bit unfair to say, but I think this is definitely, nothing replicates season 5, which is why I think that it was one of the choices with Project Tiger Moth to go with that similar season 5 aesthetic. Granted, it mixed that with season 3 as well, but definitely you can tell the inspiration was a lot kind of season 5 based with full Project Tiger Moth. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to reflect on one of Thomas's finest moments in this season, and I'm interested to see what Tug thinks of it, because like we established, he really enjoyed the kind of laid-back nature, the beauty of season 4, but but you can tell that from his channel, from his content, he gets a bit kind of chaotic. You can understand that, like, with the chaos and kind of cinematic nature of season 5, that this is another one of his personal favorites. Like, I remember he said after season 3, he said, okay, sorry, tune in next time when we get to the really good ones. So I'm guessing he meant season 4 and season 5. So I think it's going to be mostly positive here, if I'm honest. Mostly positive, but this video has been a long time in coming, and I hope you guys will enjoy. Drop the video a like if you enjoy, subscribe to the channel too if you want to see more content like this, and so let's get going, shall we? It's been way too long, Unlucky Tug. Let's see what you got in store for us, buddy.
This video was brought to you by my loyal patrons. Pledge today and you can participate in choosing what video comes to the channel next. Link in the description.
I've not really been active on
Dear
Patreon, to be honest. I probably need to get rid of that, to be honest.
Here is your friend Thomas the Tank Engine. He wanted
Just because
to
I
come
can't
out of the
maintain it
station
at the
yard
moment
and
with
see the
everything
world.
else that's going on in my
These
life.
stories tell you how he did it.
This intro is still so epic, man.
Here we go. Thomas and Friends, Season 5. The season everyone has been waiting for.
Told
I
you.
have very fond memories of Season 5. Granted, I have fond memories of all the first 5 seasons.
Like I said, I didn't really grow up with season 5. Like, the closest I could say I grew up with season 5 related was, like I said, on the Best of Thomas and Friends VHS. But, honestly, though to be fair, that's kind of unfair because I grew up, I was still a kid, like, when I was watching YouTube videos back in, like, 2010, 2011. I was still a child. So, there's still nostalgia centered around watching these episodes for the first time, and since this is the season I had the least amount of exposure to, I'd argue, well, okay, like, Hit Era and, season, like, 6 and 7 don't really count, but, this is, in terms of, like, the main 5 classic series, I'd argue this is the one I had the least exposure to, and so there was a lot of nostalgia watching some of these episodes for the first time. You just see now the clip of Better View for Gordon. I distinctly remember watching that for the first time because that crash is still epic as hell.
But Season 5 was unique because it was the new season. When I was a kid, Seasons 1 through 4 were all already out, and I viewed all those pretty much together at once. Season 5's premiere was when I saw brand new episodes of Thomas for the first time. And with a new narrator, too. It was a really exciting time. Season 5 is quite the season.
I'd be interested to know you guys' thoughts on Season 5, on Alec Baldwin, you know. Because I think the general consensus, which I personally fall under, is that he was very, very good in Season 5, but absolutely appalling in Season 6. Some people don't even like him in Season 5, to be honest, but I think his style, his tone, and, like, the fact that it's a Hollywood actor narrating this really adds to, really drives home the cinematic nature of this season. So, definitely, I love him in this season. I really like him.
With a lot
I'd say either him or George Carlin are my favorite US narrators. It's genuinely close between those two.
writing on it. It was the last season of many things. The last to use the props in their original conditions. The last to have episodes written by series creator Britt Allcroft. And is
R.I.P.
what many consider
She left a
the last of the golden years.
I remember she left a really heartwarming Facebook message when she finally released her thoughts about I'm gonna bring this up now, but like she released a very heartwarming message saying her thoughts on All Engines Go, and also kind of afterwards saying that like the fandom is what's really keeping the magic of Thomas alive. And I think the best example, personally for me, is with the Unlucky Tug. So I definitely felt compelled to bring that point up when I saw like that whole idea of Brett Croft leaving, because this is her legacy. This is her legacy. Videos like these are Britt Allcroft's legacy. So you can imagine how she feels when she looks at stuff like this and absolutely just is blown away by the analysis, the passion. You can just tell that, like, there's so much. You could just tell that this type of content just warms Brit's heart. And I love that, you know.
Of Thomas.
I'm a positive guy, you know.
So, let's dive in.
Oh, not literally dive in. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Thomas the Tank Engine had reached the height of its popularity
I'm kidding.
in the
I know what
90s
diving in
after
means. I know
4
it's a
very
metaphor.
successful seasons. The show was global now dubbed in several languages and being regularly aired in
languages are
countries
those?
all
That's
around
Japanese.
the world. Merchandise and home videos were selling like hotcakes. It was the time
What is
to
that?
be a Thomas fan. In the midst of its popularity, creator Britt Allcroft had plans in the works for
Hey, okay. I'm convinced that, like, season 5, this is like, I'm just imagining, like, if this was the kind of around the internet age, like, this kind of era of Thomas, we'd be having, there surely would be, like, something like, I don't know, would there be something, I'm just imagining, because, like, you look at, like, what MLP was in the 2010s, and I'm just imagining, like, what this would be like if this happened, if this was happening right now. Can you imagine? Like, honestly, it wouldn't be the same. Like, it has to be different, as the times are very, very different. But I just imagine what it's like to kind of live that in your heyday. With the maturity that I have now, and the ability to make content surrounding it. Can you imagine just how... I guarantee, probably Unlucky Tug would probably have 1 million subscribers by now. He would probably be well over 1 million, to be honest.
For a Thomas film. In 1996, she was approached by Paramount Pictures and
Already
signed a
talking about
contract
Magic
to
Railroad.
write a script. After going through production hell, that movie would eventually become Thomas and the Magic Railroad in 2000. But before she could get that movie made, Allcroft needed to show just what Thomas could produce on a cinematic scale. In this lead up to the movie's production, a 5th season was greenlit.
Because there is that argument, to be honest, because a lot of people, like, I acknowledge that Magic Railroad is not a good film. I acknowledge that it is a flawed movie, and, like, I enjoy it, but I cannot see it as anything above par or good, unfortunately. So, but at the same time, we wouldn't have had season 5 if we didn't have Magic Railroad. We wouldn't have had season 5 if we didn't have Magic Railroad. Like, that's just a fact from the actual nature of season 5. Like, it would be interesting, actually, see what direction. Like, I want to see that somewhere. Like, someone remakes, like, the episodes, but in, like, without the kind of cinematic style, to be honest. Or, like, it would be interesting seeing the direction that it would have gone. Like, I'd be interested to see what theories you guys have behind it. If it would have continued with season 4, or with how experimental how those season 4, how seasons 1 till 4 tried something new every single season. Like, that's interesting. Like, I've never really thought of that before, but if any of you have any theories, then please let me know.
And Allcroft saw this as their time to really push the envelope. Allcroft requested director David Mitton really show off his modeling and filmmaking skills this year. The two opted to stray away from the original Railway series books once and for all, and write all original scripts this year that would allow them to film out-of-this-world scenarios, like a dam collapsing or a giant boulder running loose on the railway. Wilbert Awdry had sadly passed in 1997, but it did mean that they necessarily didn't have to stick to his written material anymore. It was a risky decision to stray away from the original book's source material, but considering by this point Awdry himself was already pretty upset with the direction the show was going.
It did pay off in season 5, even though one thing I will say, there are some episodes that some storytelling in season 5 does fall a little bit short of the mark. So, but at the same time, the same applies to Audrey's stories, to be honest. Like, I'd say it's like 10 to 15% of Audrey's Wilbert stories were misses, to be honest. So, they can't all be bangers. So I definitely say, in comparison with, like, the situation, and, like, I'd certainly think it paid off.
It's really no shock they decided to take this leap. No restraints meant that they could have total creative freedom over every episode this time, and that was imperative for a season that had a potential movie deal riding on it. Inspiration for story ideas came from David
I heard
Maidment,
this. I
a
read
former
this on the
manager for the
wiki.
London Midland region of British Railways and the founder of the Railway Children charity. He served as the railway consultant for this season and was keen on the show using actual railway events to
Also,
base
the
their
audio
new
sounds a
stories
bit...
on.
Does anyone else feel like the audio sounds like it's peaking in this one? I don't know why.
Some were based on simple slice-of-life events that he recalled, such as a ram breaking into the station house,
That's quite nice,
which actually
actually.
happened at the abandoned station house at Clanhilleth, as well as more
Clanhilleth.
known events such as the Gare Montparnasse station crash in Paris. These particular events became the basis for the episodes Bah and A Better View for Gordon, respectively. In
That
return
crash
for
is
his
still
work,
so
Allcroft wrote
amazing.
Maidment a check for
Call me a
£10,000,
masochist, but-
which he then
They call me I don't even know what the word is. Call me a pyromaniac, but I just love that crash so much. I'd say it's my favorite crash in the series, to be honest. Just like, I know there's like others like the flying kipper crash, but Jesus Christ, this accident there's something so special about it, you know.
and donated to his Railway Children charity. So wholesome. These newer, larger-than-life episodes required the team to really bring their A-game when it came to set building and filming. Several new stunt sets were built with the intention of being used once for some grand spectacle moment, such as this dam set, built just to be destroyed.
must have
Kirk
taken
Ronan
them
Station, built with the
ages.
intention of plowing Gordon through its rear wall. Or the sheds
Plowing.
on this quarry set that were blown to smithereens.
That's what she said.
Thanks to the surplus of rushes that were leaked this year courtesy of user Thomas Tank Merch, we have first-hand experience now just of
Bonk.
how much hell the team went through to film all
I'm
of
just
these
imagining like
impressive
cartoon
sequences.
sound effects being
The
over
amount
there.
of
It was like,
outtakes there are,
"Bow."
Boulder chasing the engines, or the lorry falling off a cliff, or Gordon
Wee-
smashing through the station wall
wee-
is really outstanding. They did
Whoop,
4
whoop, whoop,
takes
whoop,
of
whoop,
this.
whoop, whoop.
They had to rebuild the wall every single time they did a new crash take.
Oh no!
Absolutely bonkers. These tapes
Oh
really
no!
show just
I
how
can just
much work
imagine
it
just how irritating that is.
took to produce a show like Thomas, with all practical models and no CGI, and this stuff will always be impressive. They used this opportunity to fix up props that proved troublesome in the past, most notably the narrow gauge engines. All new larger narrow gauge engines were built after the smaller Season 4 ones proved difficult to work with. They
And that's why Sir Handel and Duke never appeared again. Well, Sir Handel did. Well, Sir Handel appeared in Hit, but Duke, sorry. Sorry, buddy.
built an entirely new larger scale to accommodate these bigger engines, complete with bigger rolling stock, buildings, and people figures, so they never looked out of scale. Now with bigger machines to work with, no longer did they have to hide the battery boxes and the rolling stock behind the engines or have to worry about the wheel motions jamming. These new props would be used for the remainder of the series. When it came to the English-speaking narrators, Michelangelos once again returned to narrate the UK dub.
Of course.
The US dub,
R.I.P..
however, saw a change. Thomas was able to stand on its own legs in America now without being catalyzed by Shining Time Station. Following the cancellation of that series, George Carlin officially took his leave as Mr. Conductor and the narrator. And so stepped in Alec Baldwin. Yes, the Alec Baldwin of Hollywood fame.
The Alec Baldwin that shot someone on a set of a film set. Sorry, that was a bit brutal.
He was signed onto the series as the
check.
narrator for 2 seasons.
That was a bit brutal, I
He'd
apologize.
go on to play Mr. Conductor in Thomas and the Magic Railroad.
That just reminded of that Grand Tour quote. That Grand Tour quote. That wasn't even in the back, that was in the face.
Where were you?
Thomas,
Well,
for the
well,
third time in a row, had scored celebrity talent. Season 5 completed its production in early 1998, and the
Poor
season premiered
Michelangelos,
later
he's-
that year in
That's the
September.
thing.
With
Michelangelos didn't get any sort of break from this. He just stuck with this for until like 15 seasons, which came out like almost a decade before his death. So he didn't really get a break. He was only really known for Thomas narration. To be fair, like, he's quite the legacy though. To be fair, I can't imagine he's complaining with that kind of legacy. You know, what's wrong with being known for a narrator of a children's show? You know.
the episode Cranky Bugs.
I mean, David Mitten's known as a director of a children's show, so the whole
Unlike all the
shebang.
seasons prior, Season 5 strays completely
Doctor,
away
I'd love
from
to
having a
just
strict continuity,
the whole
and each
shebang,
episode
but-
is episodic. It's rather similar to Season 3 in that regard. There is a large,
I'd argue it's more episodic than Season 3, but go on.
big picture overarching continuity, like new characters that are introduced do reappear as part of the world, and new additions to landmarks remain permanent throughout later episodes, etc. But the overall
Love that.
structure is very loose. You can watch most of this season out of order, and it doesn't really feel like you've missed anything. And this would become the template for the show moving forward. As every classic season
Haven't
has
really
done
noticed
so
that, to be
far,
honest.
Season 5 continues the tradition of building out the world of Sodor even more than ever, exploring all new territory that we haven't seen yet. Just to recap,
One thing I will say is that it does slightly make it, well, like, on one hand, it does make it slightly redundant, the fact that it's a TV show when there's no kind of concurrent arc, because this kind of leads it into the fact that it will never kind of end. But at the same time, there's a special kind of charm about episodic Thomas, like the fact that it is episodic and keeps there is no kind of concurrent story allows for new story opportunities more often. So there's more chances to experiment which means that kind of like it's all filler basically. It's all kind of relaxing episodic filler, which I think it works. It certainly works for something like Thomas, you know.
Season 1 was main line and Thomas's branch line. Season 2 really focused on Edward's line. Season 3 focused a lot on the West Coast. And Season 4 was the narrow gauge railways in the mountains. Season 5 relished in exploring all the old abandoned parts of the island. There was a real air of mysticism in this season.
That's kind of foreshadowing for the Magic Railroad, because you think of, like, you know, the Magic Railroad's this kind of mysterious line, and again, this is something I never really thought about. So fantastic work, Mr. Tug. But also it's like you always look at those kind of Hollywood setups. I mean, they even use this setup for a future special in The Great Discovery. So, you know, there's that era of kind of new mysterious places being discovered is a very kind of Hollywoody kind of trope. Hollywoody isn't even a word, but you know what I mean.
Tapping into the unknown, long-forgotten parts of Sodor and the supernatural elements that comes with that. There's a lot of stories that deal with ghosts and the paranormal this year. There was also a lot of focus on Toby's old line this year, showing places that we haven't seen since Season 1, like Arlesdale End. The theme of once old and lost, but found and made new again, was absolutely a running theme throughout all of Season 5. Each season seems to have something unique to it in how it was filmed. Season 1's thing was a static camera with details in the foregrounds of wide shots to make the sets look like paintings. Season 2 loved moving the camera around and playing with panning shots, etc. Season 5's thing is straight-on character tracking shots. Countlessly over this season, we get shots of the camera placed directly in front of a character as they're traveling.
I wonder why that is.
They've done this sort of technique before, it's not really new, but they've never done it at this scale, and they do it so sparingly after this season too. These head-on shots are honestly quite intimidating, especially when the character is traveling at speed. You get a nice sense of the weight and power of the engine when it seems the camera is attached to it. Season 5 loved its tracking
I will admit,
shots.
sometimes it just looks...
sets,
especially when I was a kid, it always just looked a little bit silly.
I think design-wise, Season 4 was the peak of the series. Nothing really beats those beautiful mountain wonderland scenes from that season. Though I will give...
So, interesting music choice. Like, why... He's just got the kind of college rock beat just in the background of this.
Season 5
It's so
credit.
weird. I suppose like it's supposed to match like the tone of the season, like a bit like a faster BPM, a faster this kind of faster like music to kind of match the kind of tone of the review, and not the review, the season, you know.
It does create some breathtaking
does make
frames
some
at
sense.
times. These ones of
It's
Toby in the
it's just
forest
funny.
come to mind. And not to mention how impressive some of its stunt sets are. I guess the set design comes down to the
bollocks,
type of
that
season
mine's
that
gonna
they
collapse.
were making. Season 4 was all about being comfy and taking in the scenic places the little engines traveled to, while Season 5's goal was more to be
So that face is
exciting and
terrifying.
adventurous.
Scruffy's
The
face
sets
will
were
never not
designed
be
with
terrifying
stunts
in that lighting.
mind, more so than creating a pretty frame. And perhaps it's a bit unfair to say one is better than the other. I will say this though, the engine props themselves look the best in this season. I don't know what shades of blue and green they used on the main characters. But those slightly darker shades
it looks kind of metallic as well. Like you see there on Gordon, you can see the kind of reflections on his boiler. It's very pleasing, you know, and that kind of, you know, no, these characters are kind of romanticized as these protagonists, again with that kind of Hollywood feel. These kind of they have much more power and kind of weight behind them. They're much more romanticized here.
Them look the best that they have ever looked, complete with that glossy sheen. They look so real, the least toy-like of any season. Let's talk about the score. The score this year sounds so cinematic, varying so much depending on what type of episode they're making. Sometimes it's adventurous and atmospheric.
Every time I hear this theme,
Sometimes
I
it's
always
cute
think.
and whimsical.
Every time I hear that theme, I always think of the Project Tiger Moth now. I wonder what instrument that is. I have no idea that kind of muffled sounding kind of instrument. I wonder what that is. There's kind of like a chime in there, or what instrument is that?
Sometimes it's tense and heart-pounding.
Oh, I love this
and never lets
theme.
up. Sometimes it's mysterious.
I'd say it has the best score of Thomas, to be honest. By season, I'd say it has the best score. Also, this is another banging theme.
Downright creepy.
This isn't Sudrin. Sorry. This
The
isn't Toby's
range
Wimbledon
Mike
version.
O'Donnell and Junior Campbell implemented in the
is
score
this-
this year
I'm trying to think
is nothing short
version
of
that is.
awesome. I've made this comparison before, but the music itself is a subtle reflection of the characters and their series-long arcs as well. Compare Thomas's theme back in Season 1.
It's so catchy. I've never realized how catchy
It's
this
very
theme
fast
can be.
and playful, very forward-moving, reflecting Thomas's youthful, impatient, cheeky, eager character back then.
And also the
And
fact
as the
they only had
seasons go on,
synthesizers to use.
the theme becomes slower and more orchestral as he grows as a character and gains some humility. The theme now in Season 5 feels so masterful, made completely up of an orchestra. It's so much slower and grander.
Masterful. That is the word, actually. You know that? It's that's I never really realized that before. You kind of just how it's so in control, so graceful, like that kind of thing. Everything sounds so clean in the blah blah blah. In the composition, just everything just
and fuller, reflecting the more mature, cooled down, and experienced character Thomas is now.
such a controlled
I
kind of
love
beat,
the musical
you know?
storytelling of classic Thomas. The score's evolvement over time alone tells a story in itself.
And there's a nice little kind of
Let's talk
there's nice kind of little added kind of ditties of previous I like that kind of, you heard that that was a kind of ditty of a previous theme. Kind of one, it kind of represents his friends, like the friends he's made along the way, and two, it also represents just it's like a reflective piece on his on all his adventures, you know? It's kind of hearing that kind of little ditty from like a previous story is very, very nice.
about the narrators this year.
Actually, no, I've just realised that little piece of composition is Percy's. Wait a minute, let's go back a real sec.
Grander and
Hold on a
fuller,
minute.
reflecting the more mature, cooled down, and experienced character Thomas is now. I love the musical storytelling of classic Thomas. The score's evolvement over time alone tells a story.
That little that's Percy's. That you hear that in Percy's theme, and that's really interesting. The linking of the two characters and just the score alone, that's so cool.
In itself.
That's a little Percy composition.
Let's talk
there.
about the narrators this year. First off, I want to talk about Michael Angelis. Michael Angelis has been around since Season 3, and I'll be totally honest, I haven't exactly loved him in the show so far. I didn't really care for his performance in Season 3. He sounds like he's reading the lines too fast for my liking. He was much better in Season 4, and he won me over in several episodes. Season 5, though, this was Angelis's peak. Without question. This is my favorite season of his.
Yikes!
Help! Save me!
A quick-thinking shunter did just in time. What was that? Exclaimed James.
His performance is so on
I love
point
doing a
this year.
Michelangelo.
He reads at
I
a
love doing a Michelangelo impression, you know. What was that?
perfect pace that matches the pace of the episodes, and he reads his lines in a way that adds to the mysticism and the tone of the stories.
Rusty is sure that on a clear night it is gazing up at the mountain and that its size...
There's such a pleasing acoustic reverb to his tone as well. You know, for Michelangelo. There's such a pleasing kind of tone they use. Like, I don't know, it just sounds a bit bassier, a bit beefier, a bit more kind of... There's a lot more kind of presence in his vocals, in his narration, you know, and kind of even when he's whispering, you can still I'm just going closer to my microphone to kind of prove a point, but he's kind of there's a real sense that kind of bassier tone is kind of announcing itself, and even when he whispers, there's a real kind of I think there's a real kind of technical aspect to how he delivered his vocals. I'm just calling it vocals because it's a technical reason, but like just his narration in general, just there's so much kind of presence in it. And I think that's, I can't tell if they adjusted the gain or if they added a special kind of effect or they had a different kind of EQ, equalizer with that kind of thing, but just something about that specific audio quality sounds very, very nice. I'd like to talk, I'm going to do this as a video, but just so you guys heads up, I will be doing a video comparing the narrators. Like, I'm still in the process of making a script for it.
Are being carried on the wind to where it once used to stand, proud and silent. I wonder if Rusty is right.
Do you hear with
Don't
that?
you?
Even when he's
Not to
whispering,
mention
there's still
his funny
presence.
ad-libs.
She's got a dog,
Oh, yes.
said Percy.
Oh, off.
Season 5 is the best Angela season, no question. Now let's talk about Alec Baldwin. I love Baldwin as a Thomas narrator, especially
I
in
like
this
him as
season.
well.
Baldwin's natural voice is very classic American Hollywood male sounding, super dramatic and theatrical. And what better season to have a man of Hollywood talent narrating than this one? The one with explosions,
you, Mr.
runaways, ghosts,
I do
and
pride
disasters
myself on
all
having a
around. His
having a
natural
soft,
speaking
dramatic,
voice adds such a
raspy
level of
voice.
dramatic tone to scenes, making them feel much more serious and adult than they actually are.
We should have left this
Part of the island.
alone.
He makes them almost feel like mini movies. Not to mention, it just sounds like
I love
Baldwin
doing impressions
himself
of the
is having a
narrators, I'm not gonna
blast
lie.
behind the mic. He gives all the characters a unique voice and delivers their lines with such energy. He goes
One thing I will say though, I do like that. I think that's kind of, especially considering he's an actor, his whole kind of thing is how he just adjusts his tone to kind of give different voices constantly. Sometimes it just doesn't work for me. I think his voices like Henry, Duncan, Bill and Ben, those voices really, really fit because of because they were characters that didn't really have a distinct kind of voice before. So, like, granted, like Bill and Ben were kind of squeaky, a bit squeakier in George Collins, but much more kind of much deeper with like Ringo and Michael. So it's like they're like their character, and Henry never really had a distinct voice. So it's nice kind of he used those characters specifically to kind of experiment. Duncan, granted, did kind of have a distinct voice. Is kind of against that, but he kind of. Do you know what? I swear Baldwin based his voice for Duncan off of Ringo Starr. Come on, please tell me I'm not the only one that thinks that.
goes all out with them.
We engines run this island, said Henry.
That's my line of cars.
It's not. It's mine.
Yours is over there. It's mine. It's not. It's mine. It's not.
They'll
So
come
much
back to
character.
spook you and your special funnel. Woo!
Do you
Oh,
hear that?
help!
I swear he based that off of Ringo Starr. Also, LGBTQ James. I mean,
Cried
come on.
James.
Go away.
They are
I mean,
also
come on.
cartoony and flanderized, yes, but I kind of love that.
Oh my
Especially
goodness.
Gordon.
Harold thinks he can go faster than me. I'll show him. Important engines like me
love
should
it.
have a panoramic view where I can see people and people can see me. I'm the greatest. Just watch me fly by.
Who is he yelling at here? Himself? Is he trying to psych himself up? All the characters are so snippy this year. Everyone is so hot-headed, and it seems like they all have a bone to pick with someone about something.
The sky's
I'm
empty.
laughing like a
Like your
schoolboy.
smoke box, Percy. Laugh, James.
One day I'll show you just what a big engine can really do.
So what can a big engine really do?
Not speak to silly little green engines for a start.
Ow!
The character banter is at an all-time high.
Call yourself a
It is
car?
amazing.
You're a disgrace to the road. Find yourself a scrapyard.
I've never heard so many savage
The end
comments
is
from
incredible.
Thomas characters in my life.
Your color's nice, James. Pity about your face, though.
To me,
That's my favorite Thomas insult of all time. It's just so in your face. That wasn't even like just a backstab. That was just, oh, right, just a proper smack in the face. Just,
this is the best version of Thomas and Friends, and is very in the spirit of the original books. The engines are all selfish jerks in some way or another.
actually, no,
always
my favorite
complaining,
one is
and
from.
for the course of the episodes,
my favorite
do
one
they
is
learn
my favorite one is from Bath. From Bath. Where I'm trying to remember the quote. It's like, all right, Alsdale. He's trying to choose his favorite station. All right, Alsdale End. But that's where I live. Exactly. That's why I like it, especially when you're there and not here telling me I'm silly. Something like that. I can't remember the quote.
to, well, basically not be jerks. That's like the moral of the whole show, and it's so entertaining here. The stories this year may not be based on the books, but these still feel like the characters straight from the pages.
I love that Percy
Arsdale
face
End.
as well.
That's
There we
my
go.
home, replied Toby. That's why I like it. Especially when you're there and not here saying I'm silly.
Oh, yes, I got it right! Oh, take that as a W. I got the quote completely right. How much of a Thomas fan am I? Come on, guys.
Night.
The ultimate.
But the thing that
Oh,
season
crap, I
5
didn't say goodnight at the end,
excels
fuck.
at over any other season before and after it is tone. Season 5 plays with tone so often and so successfully. Scary episodes, adventurous episodes, funny episodes, fast-paced runaway episodes, slower heartwarming episodes with feel-good morals.
Yeah.
One episode will be, oh my god, that ship just crashed into a dock and knocked Cranky over, oh my god! And then the next episode is a nice slice of life tale about how Sir Topham Hatt goes
Very,
through
very
hell and high
true.
water to get to his wife's birthday. Aw, he finally gets there in the end, and despite what he looks like, she's still so happy to see him. And she kisses him and everyone laughs. Aw, it's so feel good. And then in the next episode, the dam collapses and sweeps Toby away, and Toby's going to go over a waterfall. Oh my god, he's gonna die! Oh no! And then
He's a good voice actor, is one thing I will say with the Unlucky Tuggy. He's a very good... His voice is kind of... One thing, even though his voice is very distinct and very kind of mellow-tone, especially considering this is his... He's dubbing this, and he's narrating it. It's so... He's definitely got the expressiveness of a voice actor, you know?
the next one is about how
He's more
Percy
expressive
finds a
than
good luck
me.
package for Mrs. Kindly's daughter's wedding. And aw, he even gets a kiss at the end.
How does that
Oh,
work?
cute. Holy shit,
Why is there so much kissing in this show?
a giant boulder is chasing the engines and going to kill everyone! Oh my god, the ship just exploded! Ah! Every episode is totally unique and different. You never know what you're going to get with Season 5. This is a season I envy
Oh,
new
Christ.
fans of the show
wasn't even
for.
that funny,
I
but-
wish I could experience this crazy adventure again for the first time. It is a ride and a half.
No pun intended.
Season 5 was sort of back to basics, funnily enough, when it came to its characters.
So
It is
catchy
majorly
beat.
focused on the main cast. The main characters have a lot more to do this season than they did last year. This is not a season that is as evenly dispersed as, say, Season 3 was, where every character present had something to do that year. Nah, this time a few faces are forgotten, but I
Aw.
suppose that's inevitable as the cast grows more and more each year. Edward
Right,
and
Trevor.
Duck both don't do much, albeit a few speaking lines here
Sorry,
and there,
Boko.
and that won't be uncommon later on, just wait. Donald and Douglas strangely don't appear.
Oh,
A
yeah,
couple
why is
narrative
that?
faces are absent, but not too many. Many secondary characters were given time in the spotlight, though. Characters like Stepney, Bill and Ben, George, and even Toad the Brake Van get whole episodes to themselves.
And
Unlike
Oliver.
season
Oliver doesn't
4,
really get much.
I feel like season 5 had a much healthier mix of
Not until
stories
season 4,
focused on
really.
the mains and on its supporting cast. In third place this year, we have a two-way tie between James and Toby with 3 lead roles each. In second is Thomas with 5. And in first, to no one's surprise,
Percy.
is Percy with a
Again.
whopping 8 lead
Again.
roles. Percy continues to get more and more lead roles than Thomas each season. Why
Why
isn't
is
he the
that?
main character at this point? First
Why
character
is
I'd like to talk
That's
about.
interesting, because there must be some kind of intention behind that to give him more lead roles than Thomas. Like, surely there's some intention behind that.
Out is Toby,
Leave your
who had
thoughts
a
down.
great year. This is definitely my favorite Toby season. I loved all the focus on his old line and that part of
He does have
Sodor
some
that
good
only
episodes.
he really ever ventures to. Toby's episodes were very adventurous, exploring a long, abandoned, seemingly mystical part of Sodor, and taking on a collapsing dam. Both pretty badass of him. I really like seeing this braver version of Toby that seeks adventure, that the later seasons just sort of totally forgot about. Henry also had a pretty good year, with both his episodes featuring awesome crashes. Henry has always been the softer of the big three. Gordon and James are always jerks, and Henry was usually the more sympathetic one. Not this year, though. Henry is a full-on jerk this time around, and I am all here for it. I
Considering he has arguably the scariest episode of the series.
love Jerk Henry.
You're late, and that smell is making me ill. You're the only danger on the rails, Thomas. Now stop wasting time and get your cars hitched to my train.
Jeez, Henry, lay off a bit, would ya? I thought
Again, it's just there's such a cruel kind of vibe to all of it, and I think it's kind of reflective of, this season. It's like, this season's not only cinematic, it's also more mature. Like, it's difficult to say, because it's like, all, like, seasons of Thomas, I argue, like the classic series anyway, treated the tone and scale of it with a level of maturity. And honestly, like, I think all of them had a level of maturity, but when you look at, you see seasons like 3 and 1, they're very much kind of storybook, very much kind of escapism. Whereas here, like, okay, because I look at these characters bantering with each other, I'm reminded of my family, I'm reminded of, like, my friends, how we classic banter before. Like, this kind of teasing banter is everywhere. It happens, and it happens throughout the world. So I think it's a really kind of mature side message, that kind of, like, the way these characters interact is that not everyone is kind of really wholesome and really kind of nice towards each other. People are properly dicks to one another sometimes, and to be honest, for, like, going back and to, like, for someone on the autistic spectrum, it's difficult to read that sometimes. So seeing these characters argue back and forth and know when it's teasing and know when it's, like, legitimate, then it helps me, or, like, another autistic person or someone else with that kind of, with a difficulty to read those kind of things. They find a difficulty in, they basically find a way to not react to it helps one clock that a lot faster when they are in a conversation. It's much easier to kind of tell when someone is I'm rambling a bit, but you know what I mean.
Toad a shout out as well.
Much easier to
Toad,
know,
this
that kind of
seemingly nothing break van character that's been around for a few seasons now, finally is given a spotlight episode where we learn a bit more about what makes him tick. Tired of traveling backwards at the end of trains, he desires to lead a train of his own, and gets his wish in a way he never expected. And giving us
One criticism I do have with season 5, admittedly, is that it feels like a lot of these kind of stories are more or less for the kind of conflict's sake rather than the characters. Because you look at it, this is kind of the start of the trend of character traits that are never brought up again. Granted, Duck kind of, he isn't really brought up with kind of being alone again. It's not entirely true. Like, in Toad's Adventure, he was kind of, it was kind of expanded upon as simply just wanting something new and wanting, like, a new kind of his own adventures to kind of tell. Like, it gets a bit boring just being a brake van, but at the same time, the whole idea of kind of leading for a change, that's a conflict that you can imagine a brake van having, and it kind of feels, and especially considering it's not brought up again in like seasons 6 and 7, or like until like season 7, 18, I'd like to say, it kind of makes the whole plot line, it makes it all feel a bit redundant, to be honest. It makes all this character development feels like it's just there for the sake of it, like it's just there for the sake of kind of creating an interesting conflict.
Probably the craziest runaway sequence ever in the series. It's nice that they decided to give a nobody like Toad his own story. Busy Going
Nobody
Backwards
becoming
was
a
definitely
somebody.
the moment in the show that they realized he, of all characters, could be a leading man. No pun intended. And it makes his dynamic
Leading
with
man.
Oliver even more
Oh,
interesting.
I
like
get the
how in
pun
both
now, that's
episodes
funny.
that feature the two, both open with them just openly talking about their problems and desires with each other. In Busy Going Backwards, it's Toad that's unloading and Oliver listening and advising. In Oliver's Find, it's the other way around. Nice little partnership these two have. There were a handful of new characters
It's like friendships, you know, you vent to somebody, you let them vent to you. That's how it works.
this year. And interestingly, all of them only really appear in this one season alone. New faces like Old Slowcoach, Derek, the Horrid Lorries, and Thumper never really are ever seen again, with the exception of Cranky.
It's the first season for merchandise. Oh dear God!
Cranky the Crane makes his big debut this year in the season's premiere episode, and he really made an
I suppose though, the thing is with background characters, the reason it works is because you look at the world, you don't really have these characters become mainstays in your life. Sometimes you have people come and go, you know? Sometimes it's like these single characters, like you see Thumper, he was purely made as a background character, and that makes the world feel more grounded, you know? These people, you know, not everyone you're going to come across is going to have a strong relationship with you, unlike some, which is one of the problems, I think, with the hit era, is the fact that every new character is kind of expanded on as, oh, this is Thomas's new friend, and that kind of thing. But no, we don't see any interactions with, Thumper after this season. He's purely kind of there to kind of grounds the industry and also kind of teach that lesson to children and teach that lesson to children that not everyone you're going to come across is kind of someone you're going to like. It's, you know, there are always going to be those faces in the background. You know, there's a grounded kind of industrial feel to it that has a kind of simple message that doesn't shove itself in its face.
Packed. I love the concept of Cranky. It feels very inspired.
I know
to me.
I'm kind of
This
shoving it in your
giant
face by explaining the moral, but I'm just finding it interesting. I just find that interesting. How there's kind of that kind of hidden moral. I'm not saying I want to become a teacher in the future, but you know, it's like I just find it interesting how Thomas is kind of teaches in that way.
sentient crane that is an ass to the engines because
Without
he
feeling
is
in your
quite
face.
literally their superior.
No crane has ever complained before. Well, I'm complaining now.
He has a character arc in his first episode, of course, but it's nice that that edge he has never has fully gone away over the years. Cranky definitely becomes a staple of the series after this season. The show knew they struck gold with this guy. The fact he's still a prominent character in the
Oh my
reboot
God, is he
kinda says
actually?
it all, doesn't it? Probably
Why
the
is
non-Audrey
Bulstrode and
character
all
with the
engines go?
biggest impact on the show, to be honest. Thomas and Friends just doesn't feel complete without Cranky.
Which is so
Thomas
bizarre.
is
Which kind
honestly
of
one of the-
contradicts what I said about like that whole idea of having these background characters industrial side kind of cement the industrial feel and kind of ground the series. When a freaking Crane of all characters actually gets a prominent role in the
The
series.
highlights of the season for me. This is like the only season in the entire show where Thomas feels like he has grown up and reached his maturity peak. For 4 seasons, we've witnessed a very gradual character arc for him, going from the naughty little prick he was back in season 1, and over years of making mistakes and being humbled through embarrassment and learning arcs. slowly has matured into a respected, worldly member of the team. Moments like this one and Make Someone Happy really stand out to me.
Percy or Oliver should do it. I'm too important. James, why don't you think about something or someone else for a change? You'll be surprised at how much better you'll feel if you do.
Thomas, the one who would play pranks on others and make silly mistakes and be impatient and rude and call others names and was generally selfish, is now the one who is telling the big engines that they shouldn't be selfish and shape up. It's a great character moment. I really love this more adult straight man Thomas in this season.
Straight man.
He stayed like that for the remainder of the show, really. Really wonderful character development. He is still, of course, the same Thomas we all know and love, though. And those little cheeky or impatient moments of his still do pop up.
Beware of the ghost, Toby, Thomas said. What ghost? The old warrior ghost. Every night he lights his fire, then goes hunting. Toot toot! Goodbye.
I
Some
still love that
things
moment.
never change. And of course,
It's like,
Percy.
I said this in the previous bit. That moment in Toby's discovery reminds me of that scene from Mater and the Ghost Light, where they tell Mater the story, and then it's like, well, good night, and everyone just rushes off.
This is such a
Well,
heavy
good night.
Percy season. 8 whole episodes where
I'm
he
all
takes the
alone now.
lead or plays a big
That was a
part
terrible
in,
Mater
not to
impression.
mention all his appearances in other episodes. This season shows Percy at his angriest, with such angst, at his boiling point. For seasons he's been pushed around as the little guy of the railway, and finally he's had enough and claps back. Most of Percy's stories this time around feature
Why do I
him
find
as
that so
upset or unhappy with some facet of his life, and then he finds himself at some crazy big obstacle that he has to overcome. Most notably, getting stuck at a collapsing mine,
He's probably the MVP
chasing
of this
down a
season,
runaway
I'm gonna
train,
be honest. I'm
and
calling it
heroically
now.
rescuing Toby from going over the falls. He really takes command of that littlest engines have the biggest adventures trope that the series
Little engines
loves.
can do big
But at the same
things.
time, we
Yeah,
also
yeah,
get
yeah.
sweet stories with Percy too, like when he had to find a good luck package for Mrs. Kindly's daughter's wedding, or saving old slow coach from being scrapped, or helping Maithwaite win the Best Dressed Station Award. Percy has such a big range this season, and definitely had the most adventures of anyone on the cast. I was so close to giving Percy the MVP award this year.
What?
I actually went into this expecting to give it to him, but after writing out the script, I decided that I think the award actually
Gordon?
should go
James?
to Sir Topham Hatt.
Oh.
Sir Topham Hatt, the Fat Controller himself,
Oh.
just might be the most dynamic character of Season 5, with the most information revealed about him. The humans have always been an important part of Thomas, but Season 5 in particular really pushed humans as leading characters.
That's
a couple
cool,
episodes
actually. I
this
never
year were
noticed
centered
that.
around the big man himself, which is a first for the show. They actually humanized him, no pun intended, and showed he isn't just the authority figure that barks orders at the engines. He's a person with a personality and desires. He loves his family, he loves adventure, he shows genuine concern for his engines, and he has a good sense of humor.
And I'll eat my hat if you don't like it. Then Harold landed. The wind from his blades blew Sir Topham Hatt's hat off.
that.
Well, seems I wouldn't be able to eat my hat even if I had to.
In one episode, he goes through hell and back just to get to his wife's birthday party, and in another, he just wants to have a nice vacation with his family, only to have it continually sabotaged. In another, he spends a day with his grandchildren and explores an unknown part of Sodor with them. We even meet his mother for the first time this year. That's a neat little piece of world building. I never expected to learn so much about the guy. And I definitely look at him in a different way after all they did with him this year.
What am I
know
watching?
this was my special birthday party, but I didn't know
think it was fancy dress.
Sorry, Percy. You'll win an MVP award soon. I promise.
One thing I will say, oh for fuck's sake, Percy's promise, yeah. But one thing I will say, I prefer Michelangelo's delivery of Lady Hart saying, "Well, so I knew this was a special party, but I didn't realize it was fancy dress." I promise, for fuck's sake, Tuck. God damn it! Oh, here we go. Episodes. This is a good one. This will be good.
Episodes are going to be fun to talk about, because there's so many I feel I need to touch on. This year's standout episode goes to Rusty and the Boulder. This episode is the epitome of experimental, possibly the most experimental episode of the entire series. The pitch
Considering
was,
it's a
what
very
if Indiana Jones?
Considering it's quite a simple story.
But
Actually,
with
is it? I don't know. It didn't seem very complex and
On paper, that sounds ridiculous, but somehow they made it work. No doubt the episode with the giant boulder that chases the little engines and causes havoc would go on to have a long-lasting legacy. The visual of it is so striking. Everyone remembers this one. And obviously so, as they still make merchandise of it to this day. It is definitely not the most realistic episode of the series, but I appreciate the grander themes this episode taps into. It poses that great age-old question: how much should humans intervene with nature? The Fat Controller builds a quarry in an old left-alone part of Sodor, and in retaliation, a boulder breaks loose and destroys the railway. Was it really human intervention that caused Boulder to break loose from his perch? Or was there something more supernatural beyond our understanding happening there? Was that nature clapping back?
We should have left this part of the island alone.
The episode is open-ended and leaves the viewer to draw their own conclusions. Quite a heavy topic for young viewers, and such a powerful way to end the season. Easily the season's standout.
I do have a little bit of fan theory regarding Rusty and the. It's not the I don't think it's the last episode of the series, but I feel like that's the one that leads into that's the one you could make a huge case for leading into Thomas and the Magic Railroad, because you think about it, like the Fat Controller he goes on holiday for it, so that's clearly he kind of sees that in the boulder, so. Kind of sees something frightening and stressful in the boulder. Like, I remember Rob the Green Engine. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but Rob the Green Engine once did a documentary on, like a fake documentary on all the crashes of Sodor, and he talked about the year season 5 was based and came out in 1998, and get this, he get this. He kind of basically led that into Magic Railroad by saying that the Fat Controller had to go on trial. That's because, whether he should be head of the railway in that through, and so that's why he was on the mainland. He wasn't on holiday. He was actually on court in England, which he took Edward with him. And I think that's a great premise for a story, to be honest. But like. It's interesting. It's really interesting just how much you can kind of link that to Magic Railroad, because we kind of saw that in Thomas 1 Edward 2, in Engines of Sodor by Thomas 1 Edward 2 Henry 3 is like you saw, because his final 2 episodes of Engines of Sodor are based around the boulder, and in the finale, the Fat Controller's authority is questioned, and that kind of leads into it. So into like kind of questions his safety record, and I find that interesting. You know, I find that interesting. Yeah, it's just that insight, and that. Yeah, you can really link those 2 elements. Really.
I also think Toby and the Flood deserves a mention for also being an extremely experimental feat. A disaster movie, but with trains.
One of my
love the
favorites
serious
from the season,
tone of
hands
this
down.
one, and how the episode never lets up. It plays its concept completely straight throughout until the end. It's a wild ride from start to finish, with a score that'll keep your heart pounding. Worst episode of the season, I think, goes to Gordon and the Gremlin. This is really the things just happen episode. There isn't really a plot.
Like this.
It's just a string of events that don't.
Granted, I think I only really like it because of the dog.
Really correlate with each other. Gordon has troubles firing up because of gremlins in his firebox, and then Thomas collects Topham's mom.
I
then
don't
Gordon
like
takes
Thomas
her,
and the Rumors.
And then Thomas takes
I'd
her
say
again
that's
for
my
some reason.
least favorite of
and then they
this
just go
season
back
for
to the
me.
docks, and then she leaves, and the episode ends. Why did she come to Sodor just to travel around on the trains? Why did Gordon collect her from Thomas just to take her back to Thomas? What does the dog have to do with any of it? I don't know. It's a very nothing episode in my opinion that I don't think I really get, if that makes sense. I feel like the Gremlins joke would have paid off better if Gremlin the dog had hopped into Gordon's cab, and then at the end there's a line from someone like, "Wow, Gordon, you really did have a gremlin in your cab after all." Just a thought. Though I do love the interactions between
I'd like to
Topham
see
and
that
his
as like a
mom at the
rewrite or
end.
something.
That was very sweet.
And she agrees with me. You are indeed really useful engines, and my mother, of course, is always right.
And the dog is funny.
Awful.
Make Someone Happy is very much a things just kind of happen type of episode too, with
Yeah,
no
but
real
it's
hard
sweet.
plot really. But that one has good character moments, notably the opening banter between Thomas and James. So it's worthy of that, at least. Sum up of the season goes to Thomas, Percy, and Old Slow Coach. It has the fire and excitement and disaster we
enough.
expect from Season 5. But it also has the slower, sadder, more nuanced moments. And a really happy, feel-good, sweet ending. It's everything Season 5 has
He's
to offer.
used sweet a
all in
lot
one
in this
episode.
review. Have you noticed that? He's used the word sweet a lot.
And now
I mean, it's
on
true,
to
but-
my favorite episode.
Ooh, here
I've
we
talked
go.
highly about this one before, and you can probably guess what it is. It's Duncan Gets Spooked. The tone of this episode is unmatched by anything else, and the darkest episode of the series by far. This episode shows an engine's death on screen, and then leaves it up to the viewer's interpretation if that engine's ghost we see later in the episode was real or not. It's quite unsettling, and I don't think any other ghost theme episodes have ever come close to achieving that feeling. The word I would use to describe Season 5
Cinematic?
is peak. The peak of the classic seasons of Thomas.
I hear peak,
In
you know.
so many ways, this is the best the show ever got. Best score of the
I told
classic
you.
seasons.
Yeah, I say
best
it's definitely this is the
dialogue
best
written
season.
between the characters. Best season narrated by Michelangelos. The props look the best this year. It's the season that played with tone the best. And it was the peak of Britt and David's working relationship together. Season 5 is easily a lot of people's favorite season, and it very well might be mine as well. This feels like a finale to Classic Thomas, and it kind of is. The movie followed this season, and as we all know, things were just never the same after that. This is the final season this magnificent duo worked on together as writers, producer, and director, respectively, and they went out with a bang. And that covers it, folks. We've now covered the first 5 seasons, what many people would say is the classic Thomas era. For a lot of people, Thomas ended here. We still have 20 more seasons to cover, and a movie, the movie that changed everything. But I'll get to that. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this retrospective. I know it's
So
one
he is
that
gonna get
many
to
of you
Magic
have been
Railroad.
waiting for a long time now. I'm happy it's finally out. Thank you all so much for watching.
Brilliant.
And, yep. Wait a minute.
Oh.
Hold the phone.
Ooh.
I still have one thing to share with you all. Get ready.
It's Project Tiger Moth, isn't it? I was right. Yeah, this is where it was announced. This is where it was announced.
The trees are always lovely and green, and the flowers are always colourful.
It is exhausting, creatively. It's eaten into my soul all the time. Even dream about it now. And the funny thing is that the dreams generally sometimes could be better than the movie.
Thomas is always magical and always will be. In filming it, you've got to explain all the questions filmically there so that there's no mistake, there's no misunderstanding, and the story is clear and in very picturesque countryside, and that is the magic of the island of Sodor.
I still can't believe this is a thing, you know. This is a fucking thing. This is a thing.
What you just saw is a teaser trailer made by Jacob Jarrett at Flying Pringle, who has been carefully and quietly developing a brand new full Gauge 1 episode of Thomas. picking up where the golden years of the show left off, in full Season 5 style.
Jesus
After over
Christ.
2.5 years of work, this new fan-made episode, created all by Jacob, along with the help of Rob, Zio, Camden, and many others, is set to premiere live at the Great Train Show in Edison, New Jersey on the 26th of November this year. If you're a Thomas fan planning on going to this show, I strongly urge you to check it out. If you aren't able to go to the show, a YouTube upload of the episode will be going live at the same time on Jacob's channel. Link in the description. Keep in mind, something on this scale hasn't been done since the actual model series ended over 15 years ago. This is going to be something really special, and I, for one, am seriously looking forward to it.
There we go. Here's the other half of your patrons. Oh, Jesus, 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 Jesus Christ. James Fan 1991's a patron. That's funny. He was my childhood, by the way. And there's Mare. I see you, Mare. Yeah, Mare, I see you. I see you as fucking patron. Oh my god. This guy is the guy, you know, honestly. Tug is... Good way of ending it. He is the guy. He is the guy to cover this series, this season. Only he could do it this justice. Yeah, this is the best one, hands down. Season 5 is definitely the best season. But, and the teaser for Project Tiger Moth was very, very cool. I think that ties into season 5 very, very well, considering how much of its aesthetic is based on season 5. But honestly, I don't know, guys. Sometimes it's really difficult when I kind of look at stuff like this. I must admit, I can't help feeling a little bit jealous, to be honest, like of just all these people's talent and creativity. Like, I can't help feeling a little bit jealous sometimes, I will say. But it's not even like, but you know, you see all these people doing all this stuff, all this content for this fandom, and you just kind of wonder, how the hell am I supposed to replicate that kind of impact, you know? Because it doesn't bother me too much, because, you know, I'm still making impact and I'm getting my thoughts out, and content is on the way, guys. I've still got ideas floating around, but you know, it's just things to think about. This is an event, that's all. Sorry, but you know what I mean. But honestly, Doug, another spectacular, another fantastic video. Yeah, just seriously, just heart, soul, all the above. All of that's been put into it, and also I want to thank you guys so much for the support, because I know this video is gonna do well. But thank you guys for your patience. Honestly, thank you guys so much. And I wish I could keep doing this kind of content, but I'm not getting paid for it. I don't have the energy to do this 24/7. I wish I could keep doing this, but unfortunately it's not enough. Unfortunately, but maybe one day, maybe not this channel, but maybe one day I'll bring entertainment to you guys in another way. Maybe. This isn't a goodbye. Oh, sorry. This sounds too much like a goodbye. Sounds too much like a goodbye. Come on, let's end on a positive note. But yeah, season 5 definitely has, and is definitely the best. I'd definitely say the best. And I had fun reacting to this. Like, I have just so much fun watching these and kind of getting my own thoughts out. Like, I know it's a long-winded video, but I have tons of fun. I have tons of fun with videos like this. I don't care. So yeah, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. You guys have been absolutely fantastic, considering how the position I'm in to make content. Like, so honestly, thank you guys so much for your support, and I will try to give back with as much content, with more quality content in the future. But if you, thank you guys so much. All right, I love you all. This is the Sal speaking. I'll see you guys next time. Please subscribe to the channel.